The first match of the Arts of War tournament's second round begins with Seika against Laviniere the puppeteer. A large stone golem meets Seika in the middle of the arena. The commentator informs the crowd that Laviniere's previous opponent couldn't approach her at all because of the golem. But what strategy can she use against mages? Well, magic circles now shine brightly on the golem's body, and Laviniere appears behind her golem. She smiles and informs Seika that she had specifically upgraded her golem to battle mages, so he's good as done already. At the start of the round, Laviniere orders her golem to attack Seika. Seika just sighs and points his wand at the golem. He then summons an invisible praying mantis demon that quickly attacks the golem, slicing it apart with its claws. The commentator is amazed at Seika's tempestuous wind magic that took down the golem in an instant. Laviniere, buried in the rubble of her golem and with Seika standing over her, concedes defeat. Seika sighs in relief as he walks out of the arena. Yuki asks him why he seems so relieved, and Seika explains the summoners are actually banned from the tournament. If they noticed he summoned a demon, he would have been disqualified. Thankfully, everyone thought the invisible demon he summoned was just wind magic. Seika sits down beside Afa and Amu at the audience stands, and the two girls congratulate him. Afa, however, was worried sick and she thinks that Seika should withdraw because of Kyle's match yesterday that ended in death. Amu also asks Seika if he is planning to join the Imperial Guard if he wins, but Seika answers that he will deny the offer. Seika also points out that it's not a guarantee that he will win anyhow, but that the two girls find it hard to imagine Seika losing to anybody. Seika assures Afa that he will stay safe during the tournament, and in his mind, he's just like playing with puppies anyway, so there really is no danger. For the second match, it will be Maybelle's turn to fight. She managed to win her first fight yesterday. And for her second match, she'll be fighting Hauro, a highly skilled earth mage armed with a staff. Meanwhile, Maybelle is armed with a couple of swords strapped at her sides and back. At the start of the match, Hauro quickly aims his staff at Maybelle and shoots a rock blast at her. Maybelle draws her two swords and easily slices the rock hurtling at her. Hauro is stunned at Maybelle's skill, and he fires consecutive rock blasts at Maybelle. Maybelle in turn destroys every rock shot at her, and confidently walks toward Hauro. Hauro jumps back and starts chanting advanced magic since intermediate magic clearly doesn't work on Maybelle. Maybelle drops her swords and pulls out throwing knives. Hauro stops casting and immediately erects a rock wall to stop Maybelle. However, Maybelle's thrown knives are so powerful that they demolish the rock wall. Hauro keeps creating more rock walls, but Maybelle keeps destroying them just as quickly. In the audience, Amu is shocked at Maybelle's power, and she asks Seika what Maybelle is using. Seika explains that she is most probably using gravity magic to make her rapiers and knives far heavier than any stone, thus giving them enough power to destroy them. She isn't using it all the time though, since swinging heavy swords would be difficult, so she is most probably using it just at the moment she hits the enemy. With all this magic not working, Hauro runs back and prepares to cast another spell. Maybelle, however, draws a great sword from her back and dashes quickly toward Hauro. She then slices Hauro's staff and threatens him with her sword. Hauro realizes he's truly outmatched, so he raises his hand and concedes the match. The commentator announces the winner, and that the red-headed hero's greatsword indeed cannot be stopped. Seika gets curious why the commentator called Maybelle the hero, so Amu explains to him that Maybelle is actually the name of the second hero. And she uses the same weapon too, so she really looks the part. From her statement, Seika finally realizes something. Later that night, a mysterious stranger puts a message in a carrier pigeon and releases it. The pigeon abruptly gets attacked by an owl, and Seika appears in front of the stranger. He starts asking the stranger if he is working with the devils and what was in the message he just sent. The stranger, however, just ignores Seika and walks past him. The stranger then immediately turns around and attacks Seika. Seika, however, is faster and casts a spell, wrapping the stranger in vines and completely immobilizing him. Seika reveals he had heard the stranger talking with an information dealer earlier using his owl. He asks the stranger again what the message in the pigeon is, but the stranger just smiles and tells him that he will never talk even if he gets tortured. In response, Seika summons a new demon, a monkey-like monster called Satori. The stranger is about to ask Seika what the monster is, but the demon Satori finishes his sentence before he can. It turns out Satori can read his mind and speak it out loud. Seika starts asking the stranger questions, forcing him to think of the answers and for Satori to speak them out loud. Seika learns that the stranger is working for Baron Bull Bofus. Seika asks him some more, but the stranger starts thinking random stuff, filling Satori's answers with random noise. Nevertheless, Seika still learns that the stranger is working for the demons in the infernal lands, and that he is investigating the hero, Mabel Crane. Seika asks him why he thinks she is the hero, and he reveals that it's the prophesied year, and she also matches the prophesied age. Moreover, the assassin and the spy that was sent to the academy last year both vanished, and the information brokers also say that Mabel Crane is the hero. After questioning the stranger, Seika removes the vines and gives the stranger to Satori as a reward. Satori smiles creepily and opens his mouth wide, eating the stranger. Afterwards, Satori starts reading Seika's mind, justifying that they needed to kill the stranger since it was dangerous to let him go. Seika instantly gets cold and warns Satori to stop reading his mind or he'll kill him. Satori abruptly shakes in terror and leaves in a portal Seika created. Seika then calls down his owl and extracts the message from the pigeon it caught. Unfortunately for him, the message was written with a cipher, so Seika can't read it at all. He regrets not asking the stranger how to decode the message, but at least he deduced the Academy's plan. The Academy wants the false hero, Mabel, to win and draw all the attention. That way, the devils take their eyes off the true hero, Amu. The Academy must have learned about the demon's plan at the same time Teacher Cordell learned about Amu. After all, Teacher Cordell himself admitted that the Empire uses demon spies while demons use human spies. Currently, the devils have lost the information that Amu is the hero since Seika killed the spy and the assassin who knew who the real hero is. Yuki asks Seika if he's not at all curious as to who Mabel really is, but Seika answers that he really doesn't care, since she's also working to protect Amu. The next day, the second match of the tournament continues. The evil eye wielder, Kyle, ended his second match the same day, paralyzing his warrior opponent with his evil eye and killing him. In another match, a young knight named Renas used earth and wind magic in the first round, then fire and water magic in the second round. Seika bumps into Renas, who just finished his match, and Renas acknowledges Seika's power as a mage. It seems mages who can use 4 elements are so rare, so Renas is now the talk of the town. When his third opponent heard about it, they readily conceded, giving Renas his ticket to the semifinals. After meeting Renas, Seika walks ahead to his third match. His opponent is a necromancer who uses dead dogs as weapons. Seika just uses his earth and water magic to cast a spell, drowning the opponent in mud and securing his win. As for Mabel, she also won her third match without issue. After her match, Mabel confronts Seika. Seika congratulates Mabel for her win and voices his excitement for their matchup in the semifinals. Mabel ignores Seika's praise and frankly tells him that he should withdraw. Mabel explains that the tournament is not what Seika thinks it is, but Seika fires back that if Mabel wants to go to the finals, she has to beat him fair and square. Mabel acknowledges that Seika might be strong, but she can't afford to lose, so he might die. Seika just smirks and tells Mabel that maybe she just feels like she couldn't win. Mabel walks away wondering aloud why the Academy sent Seika in the first place, and she leaves him a warning that he should still withdraw. Meanwhile, they hear the commander outside announcing that Kyle's third opponent withdrew. Since both Kyle and Renas won their third rounds by default, their semifinal match will commence. Seika goes and accompanies Afa and Amu in the stands to watch the match. The 4-elemental mage knight Renas appears amidst the audience's cheers, while the evil eye knight Kyle stands indifferently against him. At the start of the match, Renas immediately casts a spell granting himself an evil eye tolerance buff. Amu voices her surprise that Renas can also use light magic in addition to his 4-elemental magic. Renas taunts Kyle, saying that his evil eye won't work anymore. Kyle just walks toward him, so Renas shoots a fireball at him, but it has no effect and Kyle is still walking towards him. Renas keeps casting fireballs, but Kyle just keeps facing them head on. Renas starts panicking since Kyle is not even flinching. He also tries different elemental attacks like wind, ice, or rock, but they all seem to have no effect on him. In the stand, Seika recognizes that Kyle is coating his own body with gravity magic. As with each of his steps, the stage cracks under his foot. Reynas creates an army of golems to face Kyle, but Kyle grows a number of spikes from his shadow and pierces through all of them, killing them all. It's a dark element, shadow magic. With his golems gone, Reynas charges ahead and swings his sword at Kyle, but his sword stops inches away from Kyle's face. Kyle's shadow had stabbed Reynas' own shadow. Seika recognizes it as a type of curse that seals his opponent's movements. Kyle raises his sword to kill Reynas, but a whistle loudly resounds throughout the arena. The refs have decided the match, and Kyle wins, securing his place in the finals. Kyle walks away, and Reynas, now free to move, stumbles to the ground. That night, Seika is about to sleep in his room when Yuki asks if he's going to lose tomorrow's match. Yuki then changes into her human form and cuddles with Seika. She tells him that it's been ages since she's been in her human form, so she would like to sleep beside Seika. Meanwhile, in the sky, Seika's owl is watching over their inn when it sees someone on the roof preparing to attack. Seika immediately tackles Yuki out of the way, just before the roof falls and someone crashes down into Seika's bed. Seika smiles and greets Maybell. Maybell throws a throwing knife at Seika, which he dodges. Maybell then tackles him out the window and into the streets below. She throws another knife at Seika, but he rolls away and casts a spell in an attempt to bind Maybell in vines. Maybell takes out a dagger and cuts away the vines before stabbing Seika in the shoulder. Unfortunately, Seika disappears in a puff of smoke, and all that's left on Maybell's knife is a piece of talisman. From behind her, Seika casts another spell and pushes Maybell back. Seika recognizes Maybell's toughness, and since she's out for his blood, it would be risky to let her go. Out of nowhere, a drunk stumbles out of an alley and disrupts the two's battle. Maybell throws a knife at the drunk, forcing him to duck and distracting Seika. When Seika looks back at her, she's gone. Yuki asks Seika what just happened, but Seika just tells her it was a preview of tomorrow's semifinals. Maybell stands alone, gazing at the moon and stars in the night sky, with a knife in her hand. Just then, a young boy comes to join her, but maintains a distance, and she immediately takes a fighting stance and stretches her weapon towards him. Seika lifts both hands in the air and tells her to calm down, as he is not there to make trouble with her. Reluctantly, she drops her weapons, but remains cautious. Seika observes her choice of weapon, and comments that she must feel lacking, as she is not used to using knives as her weapon of choice, but rather heavier weapons. She is surprised that he knows this about her. As he looks into the sky, he is disappointed that the sky is so clear, as he prefers a bit of clouds over the moon because there is no mystique attached to night gazing if the sky is too clear. Maybell pointedly holds up her knife towards Seika and requests to know why he followed her if he did not come to fight her. Seika came to talk about her baggage, which may make him change his mind about his decisions if she tells him. To her, he's insane for suggesting that he finally wants to talk after what has transpired. Seika was confident that she was not trying to kill him or even the man who had stumbled upon them earlier. She accuses him of being the one that looked like he was going to kill her, but he denies it. She had hoped that if she could hurt him by breaking a few of his limbs, he would drop out the next day. She looks intently at him, like she is trying to find any form of injury, and she asks him if she succeeded in hurting him or if he healed himself. He refuses to give her a direct answer. She proceeds by begging him to withdraw because if they fought for real, she will not lose to him, as there is a reason why she would not lose. She frantically begs him to withdraw, as she will not go easy on him in a fight, and she cannot afford any more death on her hands. Seika reminds her that she is a stand-in for Amu, and her mission is to win the tournament and impersonate the hero so that she can draw the devil's attention. Once again, Maybell is surprised that he knows something about her. He tells her that even though it is her mission, her desperation is fueled by something else, and if she tells him what it is, he may withdraw as she has proposed. While she is impressed, she points out that his information is a little inaccurate. Contrary to what he knows, her mission is to be killed by an evil-eyed swordsman, which will make the devils think that the hero is dead. Seika asks if Kyle is also a plant, and she tells him more. The Legrock merchants train talented slave children to use as soldiers, like her and Kyle. which explains her fighting style. When the merchants train a soldier, they open the soldier's skull and engrave magic in their brain, which makes them unable to feel fear, anger, or doubt. Currently, they are in the process of testing to see if Kyle is a real soldier. Amongst the soldiers, they are trained in groups of 4 and only one makes it to the surgery. Afterwards, he has to kill his remaining 3 friends, and by doing so, he becomes a real soldier. Kyle has killed the other 2, and she is to be the last. She's determined to make it to the finals as a test or whatever she has to be to kill Kyle, because he killed her brother, who was a member of their group. Seika points out that she is lying. Apparently, Kyle is her brother, and before his surgery, he made her promise to him to rest if he changes his behavior. She firmly believes that the man fighting in the arena is not her brother, because he would never kill without a reason. Though she is unsure of where she can beat Kyle, she is willing to try, because either way, the merchants will dispose of her. Seika offers to fight Kyle in her place, but she shuts him up because, for people like her, there is no happy ending. That's a fact she's long accepted. But Seika vows that as long as he is at the academy, nobody will hurt her. Seika tells Maybelle that Kyle's wish will most likely be for his sister to live happily and freely, instead of killing him or other people. While she agrees, she remains willing to face off with him in the next day's match, and Seika promises to show her that he is the best there is. With that, they both go their separate ways. It's the day of the match. Kyle is already in the finals and waiting to face off against either Seika or Maybelle in the semifinals. In the arena, Seika asks Maybelle about her massive weapon, and she retorts that she is going all out because she is done playing hero. Seika is genuinely interested in seeing her true potential, but Maybelle reacts in a hostile manner, calling him a noble brat who has had it easy all his life. Because of his status, she boasts that he will be unable to beat her in the match. The match commences and everyone wonders who will win. Maybelle moves about the arena, wielding her weapon against Seika and using magic while he stays in one spot with a small weapon and casts his magic repeatedly. After the fight, Seika wins the match by decision and proceeds to the finals. It is the first Imperial Arts of War tournament, and Seika is vying for the championship against the evil eye killer, Kyle. Inside the arena, Seika tells Kyle that he will not be facing Maybelle, but him. Kyle is disappointed and asks to know if Maybelle is still alive. Seika confirms that she is still alive, which means that Kyle will still kill her. Seika tries to reason with Kyle that he must not follow every order, but Kyle dismisses him because it has nothing to do with him. Seika insists that he does not like it what Kyle is doing. As her only family, Kyle is meant to value Maybelle rather than follow orders that will harm her. Seika vows to have Kyle apologize to her after defeating him. Kyle scoffs at this pronouncement, just as the announcer declares the fight open. Immediately, Seika sends the first spell to Kyle, but he bypasses it like it's nothing. Seika's mission is to make Kyle feel at least one emotion, but Kyle bounces every spell he sends to him and keeps on advancing towards him. The arena is covered in red mist so that everyone outside the ring is unable to see what's happening anymore, but Kyle is undeterred as he continues to move. Seika wishes that Kyle would react a little to one of the spells he is casting, but he shows no outward sign of the effects of the magic. Seika summons a beast, and it attacks Kyle's barrier. Again, Kyle shows no sign of fear. Instead, he continues advancing till the beast knocks him to the side. Kyle falls with a great thud and lays unmoving. Seika asked the beast if he held back, and he said yes and went off. Seika tells Kyle that if he still had his emotions, he would have been scared of the beast because it is far stronger than him. Suddenly, a curse begins to activate within Kyle, and Seika breaks it away. Kyle lies on the ground weakly as the curse refuses to deactivate even after Seika puts a barrier around them. Kyle is barely able to talk, which upsets Seika as he tries to do all he can to revive him. Seika draws closer to Kyle again, hoping that there is enough time to break the spell. Kyle opens his eyes and weakly tells Seika to help him apologize to Maybelle. Seika is angry that they tried to outwit him with a curse and promises to deal with everyone involved. Rising to his feet, his eyes begin to change to a shiny shade of red, and everything starts to move in a circle around him. In his past life, Seika was the strongest person. Therefore, raising the dead was easy for him. As everything starts to change, a figure appears in the trance as Seika begins the process, and begs him to not do it because of the reason he reincarnated himself. Performing the magic will draw too much attention and questions about him. which they cannot afford, to conceal his identity and hide his powers. She desperately begs him to reconsider his actions and asks if he has any obligations towards Kyle to make him do such a thing. Seika yielded to her pleas and stopped the process. At the end of the match, they get Seika's word about Kyle's disappearance. The Emperor never showed up for the tournament, so his prize came from the organizers of the event. Seika politely declined to join the Royal Guard, but took the monetary gift. Seika hid Kyle's body in the void to avoid further questions and to give him a proper burial. Later he meets with Maybelle and tries to explain to her, but she told him not to worry because she knew he would have curses on him, so she expected the outcome. Earlier at the arena, Kyle told Seika to give his apologies about the clover to Maybelle. Though he has no idea what it means, he tells her during their meeting and she becomes sober. Maybelle explains that before Kyle's surgery, she owned a clover hairpin, which she loved so much, and Kyle broke it, which led to a fight. Maybelle breaks down in tears as she recounts the memories of the fight with her brother over something so trivial. After calming down, she wonders what will become of her, and Seika tells her to go back and leave the academy, and he will handle it. Seika leads Maybelle to the academy, where she meets with Amu and Aoife. After the match, he told them what happened, while leaving out a few details. Just as Maybelle turns to leave, Amu challenges her to a match, but she declines. Amu insists on the match, and Maybelle agrees. Before starting, Amu tells Maybelle that she is not allowed to use magic, and anyone who knocks out another's weapon is the winner. Maybelle observes that Amu is now slower. While Maybelle is not allowed to use magic, Amu is allowed to use it, which makes it a handicap match. Amu instantly knocks out Maybelle, which makes her the winner. Maybelle falls from the impact of the magic as Amu cheers around happily for winning. Amu calls her out for wanting to fight her brother, but Maybelle tries to explain that it was neither about winning nor losing. Amu stops her from talking and accuses her of lying. To her, Maybelle is not some needy little sister waiting for her older brother's approval, but a sister who wants to surpass her brother, and the tournament would have allowed her to achieve that. Amu proposes that they get along because she does not have a sparring partner at the academy and would like to have another match with Maybelle. The two girls shook hands over their new partnership and headed out. Meanwhile, Seika goes for a meeting with an older person. He tells her that he saved Maybelle during the tournament, and she explains that the merchants sold her to the academy. The merchants intended to market their soldiers at the tournament, but after the outcome, they wanted another deal. The old lady tells Seika that Maybelle is talented, but she has suffered too much and deserves a better life, which is why she is willing to give her a second life at the academy. After the meeting, Seika seeks Maybelle out for her daily lessons, but Maybelle feels like school is too much work, and she cannot cope with it. Seika mandates her to study for her exams as she is doing poorly, and neither Aoife nor Amu agrees to help her escape studying, which makes her weep that school is too scary. At the Imperial Magic Academy, Earl Seika, Amu, Yuki, and Seika's retainer, Aoife, chat about the forthcoming summer break while at the cafeteria. Amu asks if they were all going home for the break, but Seika answers that he is on an urgent quest to research and investigate dragons in Astilia. Amu is surprised. She asks how he got such a job. Seika says that it was his father who got the request from Astilia's council. Instead of his dad going, he sends Seika. Aoife cuts in, saying that since Seika's grades are good, his dad thought that maybe he would be the right person for the job. Also, because Seika has the time to go and do the research, Amu tries to give Seika some encouragement and even asks if she will be able to tag along with them. Yuki enters the conversation. She reminds Amu that her parents are waiting for her back home and won't be happy to hear that she followed Seika and Aoife to Astilia. Amu gets sad knowing full well that her parents aren't fun to be around. Yuki tries to beg Seika to take her along with him to Astilia. She makes it clear that she didn't really have any plans for the summer break. Seika reminds Yuki that she indeed had plans to study throughout the summer break. He also reminded her that her parents were also waiting to see her at home too. Yuki complies with what Seika says and gives up. Seika asks if Aoife will be free or might like to join him on the trip to Astilia. At first, Aoife is a little reluctant, but Seika assures her that he won't force her to follow him. After some thought, Aoife agrees to go with him to Astilia. Amu tries to ask when they will set out on their journey, but she gets interrupted by a young man who enters the cafeteria. The man looks astonishing. He takes a look at the building while walking towards Seika's table, The man said that the academy looked old. He then asks if it would be possible to rebuild it. At this point, the students in the cafeteria get confused. They try to figure out who the man is and his social status too. Rise reminds the man of what they have come for. He then tells the students to pay no attention to anything he said before. He seeks help in locating Seika. Finally, he reaches Seika's table and introduces himself as Astilia's first prince, Cecilio. At the mention of his name and title, Seika, Amu, Yuki, and Afa stand up to welcome him. Seika asks the prince why he chose to come all the way from Astilia to see him, when he could just have sent for Seika to come meet with him in Astilia. The prince answers saying that he just wanted to have a look around the Imperial Academy of Magic. Cecilio talks about how the building had a palpable sense of history. While still speaking, Cecilio gets to see Afa for the first time. He gets lost admiring her beauty and forgets all the things he had been saying. Cecilio quickly asks Afa for her name. Then he hypes her beauty a little, saying that he could study at the school just because of her. Cecilio goes further to ask if she will join the country's harem. Join his country's harem? He meant for Afa to be his bride and marry him. The students in the cafeteria are surprised at such a proposal given to a slave girl. Afa makes it clear to Cecilio that she was Seika's slave and retainer. Cecilio tries to talk Seika into selling Afa to him, but is stopped by Rise, who tells him that the cafeteria isn't really a good place to have such a negotiation. They take the negotiation outside the school building and into the prince's guest house. In the house, Cecilio first begins to talk about the issue that brought him to the Imperial Academy in the first place, the issue of dragons in the old capital city. Seika asks the prince to shed more light on the dragon issue. But before proceeding with it, Seika asks Cecilio to stop referring to him by his title Earl. Cecilio begins to explain the occurrence of the dragon by saying that the dragons had been living alongside humans for more than a century. The dragons even helped fight alongside their ancestors to drive out an invading army. But apparently within the last year, the dragon had begun to act strangely. It attacked fields and fed on livestock, thus becoming a threat to humanity in the country. The dragon was in fact becoming rogue, but so far the damage hadn't been too severe. Cecilio continues stating the fact that every day more and more victims were added to the list attacked by the dragon. Seika tries to understand why people chose to live alongside a dragon in the first place. Cecilio was quite unsure of the answer, but tells Seika about how the royal family helped hatch the dragon from when it was just an egg. Seika was surprised, most especially since he thought it was impossible for a human to hatch a dragon egg. Cecilio then tries to change the topic to Afa, but is stopped once more by Rise. He takes his leave, prompting Seika to be back the next day so that they can embark on the journey to Astilia together. Seika leaves the house. On his way back to the academy, he gets jumped by Amu and Yuki. They ask the results of the meeting he had with Cecilio. Amu highlights the fact that it would be a mistake for Seika to sell Afa to the prince. It would even be terrible for him to consider such a thing. Seika assures her that he won't do that, except if it was Afa's wish to go with Cecilio. 2 days later, Afa and Seika leave the academy in a caravan with the prince and his entourage. Afa notices that Seika looks a bit pale. She asks if he's sick. Seika responds by saying that he wasn't used to traveling by carriage. Traveling by that means makes him feel sick. Afa tries to encourage him by telling him that travel by carriage is the only way to travel to different countries comfortably. Seika asks for a change of topic so he will be able to lift his fear off his mind. Afa then talks about how incredible it is for humans to live alongside a dragon. She asks if dragon's knights are able to ride the dragon. Seika assures her that it only happens in stories and of fairy tales, but can never happen in real life. Afa agrees with him before telling Seika that the prince invited her to his own carriage. Seika was surprised to hear this. He never knew that the prince was serious about wanting to marry Afa. 9 days later, they arrive at Astilia's old capital, Protoasta. Afa is so excited that she jumps out of the carriage. She admires the town, saying that it looks like a nice place to stay. Seika concludes that the place is quite serene. Cecilio cuts in, saying that people of the town live in fear due to the dragon. It was even hard for them to carry out their normal trade. Just then, Seika sees the dragon for the first time. Initially, he admires it till it goes rogue in his front. The dragon tries to attack Afa, but is stopped by Zekt, the summoner. Zect summons a lava tiger that helps to drive the dragon away. However, the lava tiger tries to attack Aoife. Seika comes to her rescue, using an earth element to stop it. The tiger frees itself with its armor. It then turns its focus on Seika. Seika goes into position to take down the tiger, but is stopped by Zect. Zect commands the tiger to go back to the blazing earth. Meanwhile, Cecilio approaches Zect and scolds him, saying that he nearly hurt the imperial guest. Zect, however, shows no remorse. He tells Cecilio that the dragon has become more violent since he left, and has started to attack people. Seika interrupts the conversation, inquiring who Zect was. The prince tells Seika that he called some mercenaries to help protect the town. Zect, however, is the leader of the mercenaries. Seika is confused. He knew that mercenaries were only called to eliminate a threat. Seika further asks why the prince planned to kill the dragon. The prince tries to justify his judgment, saying that he wants the best for his people. Seika tells the prince that in the process of trying to eliminate the dragon, it may flee and move on to terrorize another city. The prince says that he is ready to take such a chance if need arises. Zect, on the other hand, asks why a child is called to do an investigation on a dragon. Seika challenges Zect, but is stopped by Cecilio, who sends Zect away from the conversation for being rude. Cecilio scolds Seika, saying that he shouldn't be looking for trouble with ruffians. If not, he may get hurt. Seika, on the other hand, is still concerned about the plan the prince has in mind. He was unsure about the mercenaries being able to kill the dragon. The prince assures him that it is the only way to solve the dragon problem, because there can't be a dragon threat without a dragon. Seika asks the prince if the queen and king are aware of his plans to hunt and put an end to something that had been living with them for over a century. The prince, however, cautions Seika for going out of his lane and asking questions that don't concern him. Seika goes to Aoife. He starts to scold her. He asks why Aoife didn't use her magic against the tiger. Aoife said that she was confused and surprised. She made it clear that the surprise made her freeze. So she didn't know what to do at that point. Aoife begs Seika to pardon her. She promises not to make such a mistake again. Seika, however, is moved by her apology. He gives her instances that would have naturally led to her death. He emphasized the fact that if he hadn't helped her, then maybe she would have seen her end. He prompts Aoife to, on no account, ever be caught by surprise. He makes her promise him never to do this again. The prince tries to calm him down. Cecilio tells Seika that he was being too harsh on Aoife. Seika shuns the fact that Cecilio is the prince and tells him to leave since the issue was between him and Aoife. The next day, Seika and Aoife move to the library. They go to do some research on the origin of the dragons in the country. Aoife apologizes again for not using her magic to protect herself. Seika assures her that he had gotten over it already. Seika finds a particular book containing how a female dragon was hatched. Years later, another dragon came to the country, this time a male. The two dragons got together and gave birth to a baby dragon, shortly after the female dragon died. According to the book, the dragons became rogue after the death of the female dragon. This made Seika think that the female dragon didn't die because of natural causes or old age. He needed more time to investigate the matter. He goes back to his room in the palace shortly after Aoife knocks on the door. She tells Seika that the prince had requested her to come to his room. Seika, however, tells her not to go. Instead, he makes Aoife stay in his room. Before he goes to bed, Seika tells Aoife about his plan to go and check out the mountain where the dragon stayed. She found his plan to be too dangerous and reckless. Aoife tried to convince him not to go, but he had already made up his mind. Aoife asks if she could go with him, but Seika refuses her offer. The next day, Seika tells the prince about his plan. The prince does the same as Aoife and tries to convince him not to go. Seika insists that the only way of conducting his research is by going to the dragon's nest. Later that day, Aoife sees him off as he sets out to the mountains. She packs some supplies for him to go with, but Seika refuses. He starts his journey without any supplies or food to eat. All he hoped for was to see some food he could forage from the forest. Did you enjoy this recap? If you did, kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can bring you the recap of the next episode. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.